Do you think the adults that banned these books have read these books?
Absolutely not.
Oh,
Nope.
definitely not. Absolutely not.
Because I don't think a moral compass could let you ban books that say equality and loving each other.
These teenagers in York, Pennsylvania are standing up to the latest example of controversy surrounding history and race that is affecting a growing number of America's public schools.
The school board cannot just silence our voices.
Last fall, the all-white school board of the Central York School District unanimously banned a list of educational resources.
And that resource list, which has a lot of bad ideas and some books that I would definitely not want in our district.
And I do not feel it's balanced, and I think it's divisive.
That list includes a children's book about Rosa Parks, Malala Yousafzai's autobiography, CNN's Sesame Street Town Hall on racism.
Racism? What's that?
And much, much more.
Okay. Banning books on Rosa Parks. What do you think?
Well, you know, you and I had a conversation with Vivek Ramaswamy a couple of weeks ago. Great conversation. And Vivek's been smartly, I think, against, the use of bans as a way to address the invasion of propaganda into our schools. That instead what we should do is, enhance
Are we calling a book on Rosa Parks? Are we calling a book on Rosa Parks propaganda?
Well, one, I don't actually know what's in the book. Rosa Parks
I can show
herself.
it to you. I have it. I have that book.
The kids book?
Yeah, it's a kid's book about Rosa Parks. Literally. It just talks about Rosa Parks.
Oh, I'll take your word for it then. So my assumption is, no, I'm not talking about Rosa Parks at all, by the way. Rosa Parks is a perfectly fitting figure to talk about in American history. Of course, you should. No, what I'm talking about is the race essentialism stuff, the Ibram X. Kendi type stuff, the stuff that should be nowhere near school children. But again, how do we address this, right? So at some level, you have to decide what books are actually taught in a classroom, right? And that the job of that is up to the individual teacher. It's up to the school itself. It's up to the school board. You can keep working your way up the governance, but what children are taught in school is in the public interest. I think you and I agree on that. I don't know. It's obviously a difficult thing to try and figure out. Okay, how do you do that? Bans on books. Yeah, I'm opposed to the bans. We just have to figure out a way to, what I'd rather happen actually is that there be, if you as a school district are interested in students learning something in particular, then you should be picking the books that are assigned for those grade levels. So that's where you come in and say, okay, if the teachers can have discretion on these areas, they can have discretion on these areas, and make it so that, okay, you want to make sure that a kid gets a holistic understanding of American history, assign books that give them a holistic understanding of American history, rather than coming in and cherry picking which books that you're going to ban entirely. Because I don't know, I think banning books tends to make people more interested in what's inside of them, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I will say, I just think we can't let this story go without showing the absurdity of it. Like, this is absurd. Like, this isn't just like, to me, the Dr. Seuss thing, I understood why people were upset about that, but this is more absurd. Like, to ban a book that talks about Rosa Parks or hidden figures, like Black women who just, who work for NASA, like, you can't have a book on that. Like, it's literally absurd. Like, that is ridiculous.
I agree.
And it wasn't that these were being placed in the curriculum, to my understanding. They pulled them from the library. So this was not about teachers teaching it, which, by the way, I think any teacher should be able to teach about Rosa Parks. And I think any teacher should be able to teach about hidden figures. It's like, I can understand, I wouldn't agree with it, but I can understand if there were a discussion like, oh, he's teaching about Malcolm X and he's teaching about Malcolm X in a particular way. I think that would be stupid too, but not, I understand the controversy there. But Rosa Parks, like, there's probably no more neutral figure who represents what we want to be as the United States of America than Rosa Parks.
They're
taking it out of the library, not out of teachers' hands teaching it, which I think is also bad. And so I understand those students' frustration about, like, you really don't want to teach history.
I might
This is
go
what
further
this is
than
all
you.
about.
I might actually go
Right.
further than you. I don't know. I know you're not saying don't teach about Malcolm X, but like I don't know how you could do the civil rights era without Malcolm X.
Right. No,
So
I agree. That's
so
why.
I just I'm with you. I think it's important that we do think about bans reflexively as a bad idea. I think that's a good starting place. Because what you're trying to do is, you know, it's okay for people to bump into forbidden knowledge and to grapple with it, and to think, you know, and to assess people from 10,000 feet too, especially as they get older and they're able to distance themselves a little bit from the work and begin to think about what it's about, right? So like, you know, of course, a library should carry a copy of Mein Kampf, right? Obviously, because then you can assess Hitler. Like it makes sense, like to use that as the extreme example. So yeah, I just think what I don't like about stories like this is that the absurdity that was on display there, or as framed by CNN. I'm kind of trusting CNN's coverage here. The absurdity on display there, I don't want it to take away from the fact that it is entirely reasonable for school boards and schools to have discussions and have parents be fully informed on those discussions about what's taught in the classroom and what's not. And in particular, like I said, I think the race essentialism stuff and especially like the transgender ideology that's being kind of infused into a lot of school systems, especially school systems that are closer to cities or major metropolitan areas, is the kind of stuff that is worth being on guard for, because I think it's having a detrimental effect on society.